Coming up next, standing at the crossroads of her career, today's legend decided to walk away from one of the biggest bands on the planet, who just had two massive albums, including one of the biggest albums of all time, to go solo, to go it alone. But it turned out to be an uphill battle for sure. First of all, two tragedies would shake her to the very core. She would try and ease into her solo career by releasing two duets with legendary rockers, but the real risk was when she put out the heaviest song of her career. It was guitar-driven and explosive, and the song actually came from a misheard word that this artist misunderstood because of a thick Southern accent. Thank heavens that happened, because it would become a catchphrase for sure. She also got other parts of the song from a menu. It became a smash and proved she could make it on her own. It's a great story with a lot of layers to it, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you wanted to be a member of the A-Team back in the day when you were growing up, subscribe below right now. This is Nostalgia Central for music of the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. Make sure that you click the bell so that you always know when our latest interviews hit. So today we're coming back to a show that, we haven't done this for a while. It's called Solo Venture. This is a series where we follow the adventures of vocalists who strike out on their own to pursue a solo song or record. Their careers may even span multiple albums. However, the catch for this series is these legends also have to come back to their original bands. Kind of makes it interesting. Previous installments, we've covered Dennis DeYoung from Styx and his solo hit Desert Moon, as well as Journey's own Steve Perry and his 1984 hit Oh Sherry.
Is this the train to Desert Moon? Oh, Sherry. Oh,
today, really excited to get into the story behind a near-miss top 10 hit that really should have charted a lot higher, should have been a #1 hit, one of the most recognizable songs of his time by one of rock's most iconic women. I'm talking about Edge of 17 from Stevie Nicks' solo debut, Belladonna. The band she left to pursue this was, of course, Fleetwood Mac. The classic Fleetwood Mac lineup got together on New Year's Eve of 1974, and it consisted of the band's namesake Mick Fleetwood on drums, John McVie on bass, the late and sorely missed songbird Christine McVie on keyboards and vocals, Lindsey Buckingham on guitar and vocals, and of course today's featured songstress Stevie Nicks on vocals as well. The go-to lineup issued their inaugural White album 6 months into the new year. It was on July 11, 1975. It was an excellent first chapter for this group. The White album, of course, would go platinum 7 times over in the US. It would produce 3 top 20 singles on the Hot 100, including Stevie's unforgettable Rhiannon. Of course, the monumental Rumors came next. This legendary record was released in 1977, one of the biggest ever, spawned 4 top 10 singles, including the band's lone #1 hit, Dreams, penned by Nicks. The next album, however, 1979's Tusk, would bring the band to a crossroads. Tusk took 13 months to record. For Stevie, it was a true gauntlet of painful emotion as she shared a tense studio space with 2 in-band exes, Lindsey Buckingham and Mick Fleetwood. I mean, Tusk, it was a massive undertaking and a lofty vision of grandeur. However, this 20-track double album, it enjoyed relatively moderate success when you compare it to 1977's Rumors. I mean, strongest single, Sarah, that reached #7 in the States. The title track was just close behind at #8. But his other 3 singles lagged behind. And while Rumors would go on to sell more than 20 million copies in the US, Tusk would manage only 10% of that. It's pretty unbelievable. Although, to be fair, 2 million copies, it's an excellent benchmark by almost any band standards. But for Fleetwood Mac, it meant falling short of expectations. The Mac followed up Tusk with a year-long world tour But after that ended, each of the members of the band, they would go their own way. Sorry, had to do it. Mick Fleetwood went to Ghana, where he recorded his first solo LP that was called The Visitor. Christine McVie produced an album by Robbie Patton, and she also played on some of it as well. John McVie sailed around the world, and Lindsey Buckingham set about recording his own solo album. I love Trouble, such a great song. As for Stevie Nicks, rumors had been swirling for years that she was going to ditch Fleetwood Mac to go solo, which technically she did, although she would maintain an on-again and off-again relationship, with the band for decades. Her debut solo record was 1981's Belladonna, right over here, a project she actually began work on between sessions for Tusk. Just a month after the completion of the Tusk tour on September 1st, 1980, Stevie returned to the studio to start recording with producer Jimmy Iovine. She also happened to be seeing him at the time. The project would reach its conclusion that following spring. Now, Belladonna included an eclectic mix of more than 20 guest musicians, amazing musicians. Among them, Nicks used the top studio players like Waddy Wachtel and Russ Kunkel. Also, Professor Roy Bittan of Bruce Springsteen's E Street Band, as well as Mr. Tom Petty and his band, the Heartbreakers. Just having them there really pushed Stevie to work a lot harder than she ever had before. You think about that, being in a room full of all those legends. Said Stevie, you have to look good with Russ Kunkel, with Waddy, with Roy, and Mike Campbell, and Tom Petty, and Don Felder out there. You're certainly not going to stand up there and be terrible. You're going to do the very best that you can from the first time that you sing. End of quote. Stevie, of course, was able to rise to that challenge. I mean, Belladonna is a fantastic debut record. The first chapter in Nicks's solo fairy tale, if you will. Belladonna is not an attempt to recreate the sound of Fleetwood Mac. Rather, it's Stevie Nicks really through and through. It's the work of an enchantress. Released on July 27th of 81. The album features 10 tracks, 4 singles. Great album all the way through. Included among the singles were 2 primetime duets. One with Tom Petty, Stop Dragging My Heart Around. That was her first single. It reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. And, really great start to her solo career there, I might add.
Stop dragging my heart around.
Stevie followed that up with another great duet, this time with Don Henley, the intimate ballad titled Leather and Lace.
Your leather, take from me my lace.
The 2 singers had actually already recorded a demo for the song back when they were dating. Leather and Lace continued Stevie's success streak, coming in at number 6. Just those first 2 singles alone should have been enough to silence any of Stevie's critics. But Nicks still had 2 more singles up her sleeve. After the Glitter Fades would be another top 40 hit that reached number 32. That would actually be Belladonna's last offering.
Feeling remains even after the glitter fades.
But it was her 3rd single, Edge of 17, that would signal to the world that she could hold her own, more than hold her own, outside of the Mac.
Ooh, baby, ooh, said ooh, just like the wine.
Some songs can be traced back to a single inspirational moment or experience. Now, Edge of 17, it isn't one of those songs. Instead, it's a patchwork composition stitched together to include seemingly random circumstances and really epiphanies. Starting with its title, Stevie Nicks came up with the name Edge of 17 through a happy accident. During the making of Belladonna, Stevie had become friends with Tom Petty's wife, Jane. And one day while the two were talking, Stevie asked Jane how old she was when she, met Tom Petty for the first time. Jane replied in her thick Southern drawl, "I met him at the age of 17. Or at least that's what Stevie thought she heard. "Did you say the edge of 17? Jane laughed. "No, I said I met him at the age of 17. He wasn't no more than a baby then." Stevie then replied, "Oh, Jane, that is fantastic. I'm going to use that in a song." And of course, Jane was all for it. So Stevie wrote it down so that, she wouldn't forget. However, not all that went into Edge of 17 would be so humorous. In fact, two devastating losses, one personal to Stevie and the other universal to all of us, played a role in its composition. Let's start with the one that shook the world. On December 8th, 1980, former Beatle John Lennon was shot and killed by Mark Chapman, who opened fire outside the musician's New York apartment. The 40-year-old legend was shot multiple times in the back and the shoulder, close range. Lennon was rushed by police car to St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital Center, but he was pronounced dead upon arrival. His wife, Yoko Ono, of course, was with him. That event sent the world into deep mourning. But for those who had been close to him, including Stevie's producer, Jimmy Iovine, the devastation was beyond words. The two had been close friends and colleagues, actually. Nicks remembered that Jimmy talked about John Lennon a lot, about their friendship and about how John took Jimmy in and taught him how to record. Lennon was Iovine's teacher, and he adored him. On that dark December day, when the news of Lennon's murder reached Stevie and Jimmy, a terrible sadness set in over the house. Jimmy was just grief-stricken. Nothing that Stevie Nicks could say would help. Realizing that Iovine needed to be alone to mourn, Stevie left to go home to Phoenix, Arizona. She explained, "I was in Australia when John Lennon was shot. Everybody was devastated. I didn't know John Lennon, but I knew Jimmy Iovine, who worked with John quite a bit in the 70s. And I heard all the loving stories that Jimmy told about John Lennon. When I came back to Phoenix, I started to write the song." But before she could start devoting her full attention to her new composition, Stevie Nicks found herself in the midst of another tragedy. This one was more of a personal nature. After touching down in Arizona, Stevie discovered that her uncle, one of her favorite uncles, was dying of cancer. For weeks, she stayed by his bedside at the hospital, holding his frail hand, but it was only a matter of time. Actually, the line from Edge of 17 that goes, "And the days go by like a strand in the wind," well, that was about how fast time seemed to be slipping away during her uncle's illness. She would visit him often, and then one day, right about sunset, he slipped away. At that time, it was just Stevie and her cousin that was in the room. None of the rest of the family were even there, so Stevie ran out into the hallway looking for them, but no one was there. It was a heart-wrenching moment for her, and it tore Stevie up inside. Said Stevie, "I went running down the hallway, looking for somebody. I thought, where's my mom? Where's his wife and the rest of the family?" That moment would become the inspiration for another line in the song. Then suddenly there was no one left standing in the hall.
There was no one left standing in the hallway.
In a flood of tears that no one really ever heard fall at all. Heartache seemed to fuel Stevie's inspiration. Now, the combination of John Lennon's death and that of her uncle both played a big part into the writing of Edge of 17. Soon as Stevie was ready to start sorting it out, she just sat down at the piano and she started to write. The thing is, even though she was going through a lot of sorrow at the time, Edge of 17 would feel far from melancholy. There was no self-pity or wallowing in grief. It was, as one of the band members that played on it, Wachtel, observed, magic, explosive. I would have to add anthemic. It's like a victory cry. It's so empowering. In it, Stevie is unwilling to concede defeat. Edge of 17, of course, opens up in unforgettable fashion with the words, "Just like the white-winged dove." And that white-winged dove may be the crux of the whole song, symbolic of a spirit being freed to find peace. For Nicks, it represented both John Lennon and her uncle. The white-winged dove is indigenous to the Arizona desert and can often be found roosting in saguaro cactuses that are so common there. And actually, the idea of the dove came to Stevie on a flight home to Phoenix. This is pretty cool. I guess the flight attendant handed her a menu that had a little bit of bird trivia on it. It read, "The white-winged dove sings a song that sounds like she's singing ooh, ooh, ooh." She makes her home here in the great saguaro cactus that provides shelter and protection for her. Now, how's that for serendipity? Actually, though, I should really credit Nicks for capitalizing on moments just like these. She has this incredible knack throughout all of her songwriting for taking ordinary everyday life observations and turning them into something really memorable. Commenting about the white-winged dove and the song, Stevie said, "It became a song about violent death, which was very scary to me because at that point, no one in my family had died. To me, the white-winged dove was for John Lennon, the dove of peace, and for my uncle, it was the white-winged dove who lives in the saguaro cactus." The dove became exciting and sad and tragic and incredibly dramatic. Every time I sing this song, I have that ability to go back to that 2-month period where it all came down. End of quote. Edge of 17, that entered the Billboard Hot 100 in February of '82. It peaked at number 11, just outside of the top 10. That was in April. Stayed on the chart for 14 weeks. On the Cashbox chart, it reached number 19. On the mainstream rock chart, it climbed all the way to number 4. North of the border, Edge of 17 reached number 11 on the Canada's RPM Top Singles chart. Through the years, Edge of 17, it's appeared in several movies and TV shows, including School of Rock. Love how they use it there. Crown, Arrested Development, Family Guy, Carrie Diaries, American Dad, Animal Kingdom, Up All Night, Narcos, Mexico, and Brave New World.
This is it, back up, back up, back up!
Edge of 17 has also been covered by Melissa Etheridge,
Sounds like she said.
Tiffany, Matt Nathanson, Lindsay Lohan, and Kelly Clarkson.
17.
Now, Stevie Nicks has said that whenever she sings Edge of 17, it feels as if she had just written it yesterday. She's right back there in those moments when she got the news, of John Lennon's death and when she was there for her uncle's passing. And because it means so much to her, Stevie Nicks always ends her concerts with Edge of 17, sticking to its original arrangement. Said Stevie, "I can't imagine ending my show with any other song. It's such a strong, private moment that I share in this song." I remember the day that my parents bought this record. I was just a little kid. I was so intrigued by the front cover. As I spied my father putting the record on the turntable, I was caught up on side 1. But I got a little distracted through some of the songs. I was playing with my Star Wars figures. I thought the duet between her and Tom Petty, that was amazing. That really caught my ear. But as soon as side A ended and, my dad got up to turn the record over to side B, we did that back then. As soon as I heard the opening of Edge of 17 on side 2, I was riveted. Suddenly I dropped my Luke Skywalker, my Darth Vader figures, and I remember just getting closer to the speaker to really explore the mysterious sounds that were blaring out. It was a song that honestly scared me a little bit, in a good way. I was absolutely hypnotized by Stevie's distinct performance. I asked my dad to play it again and again, and he did, and I was singing a song nonstop for the next few days. It still has that power for me, the power to envelop your soul, to lift you up, while at the same time giving you a little jolt of apprehension. At least it does for me. Every time I hear the song, just like Stevie Nicks remarked earlier, every time I listen to it, it takes me back to that day when my dad first played it on our family turntable. I'll never forget it, just like the lyrics say. Well, the music there, well, it was hauntingly familiar. Indeed. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Leave us a comment about Stevie Nicks and Edge of 17. What do you remember about this incredible song? What do you remember about the first time you heard it, about Belladonna? What do you think of these stories? Share your memories below, what you think about her solo career as well. I recommend checking out some other Stevie Nicks episodes, Fleetwood Mac episodes, Landslide for sure. Also, don't forget to subscribe below so that you never miss out on our daily videos. We would love to have you as part of our community. Your support is greatly appreciated to keep the music alive. That's really the whole idea. Until next time, 3 chords.